This episode is brought to you by RLD Group, on a mission to reboot leadership drive, eradicate burnout in tech, and help transform technical experts lacking people leadership skills from being a company's biggest liability into their greatest asset. Leaders in tech are burning out at an absurd rate. Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre is a no BS conversation with a female executive who spent over 25 years in Silicon Valley. If you're suffering from the always on, never good enough, we'll replace you today machine called the tech space. This show will help you reboot your leadership drive. Here's Lisa.
There's a phrase you hear a lot lately called living in the Bonnie world, and that's brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. And I think we are so lucky today to be having a conversation with our guest because this is the world that he's living in and thriving in. He's actually a return guest. And the reason I asked him to come back is because his world and his organization has shifted as well. And it's really great to get man on the street information about what's happening and to hear perspectives from someone living in the land of tech leadership. Karan Gupta, I'm so glad you're back for session 2 with me, for round 2 of this conversation on Ctrl Alt Delete.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you so much for having me back.
You're really, I'm so glad you're here. Yes. I mean, talk about things going on. Incomprehensible, nonlinear, brittle, anxious, a little bit of your world these days.
Yeah. Pretty much every day, last few years.
Right.
It's fun. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Good. Well, let me tell everybody why I asked you back. I mean, here's the deal. With the first conversation we had, we talked a lot about hiring and recruiting. We talked about what it's like to be living with mindfulness as an engineer, to not lose sight of the fact that you have a life outside of work. We talked about burnout. We had such a good conversation and it was so highly rated by our listeners. I had to have you back. And then knowing that you have this change going on inside the company, I really want to talk to you about culture today. I want to talk about maximizing the hybrid workplace. I want to lean into what it's like to make sure your work gets noticed. I want to talk about, honestly, the contagion, which is turnover, and what you can do as a leader now to stop the contagiousness that goes with the mindset of it might be better somewhere else, right? Because we know there's cost to all this. So can you tell us a little bit what's going on at Shift right now? What's your role and how's it going?
Yeah, I'll get into that. But first I want to say, I'm glad your listeners liked our previous conversation. I think it has a lot to do with the questions you asked, Lisa. So give yourself a lot of credit,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it's top of mind for everyone. And I'm really, really glad you're here. I mean, listen, what I know about you and the reason I had you back was I know you're a leader who actually believes in family time and really works to prioritize the I'm going to put in air quotes balance, because we know that sometimes balance is not even an option, but at least prioritizing based on what matters most right then. And I also know that you want to leave the world a better place. Like you work on things that matter to you and to the family that you love and the world that you live in. So I think we have like a real strong values alignment as just who we are as people. And I'm really wanted to have a conversation today about, the world that we're in now and what leaders should be thinking of, can be thinking of, or might be holding to be true that they can let go of to actually be more productive, not burnt out, and really engage with their teams, ultimately for their customers, right? So fill us in. What's since we last talked? What's shifted at Shift?
Yeah, so very quick intro. CTO at shift.com. Shift.com is the easiest way to buy and sell a car. And if you are trying to buy one or if you're trying to get rid of one, it's really a really quick and elegant way to do it. And by the way, we are a tech company headquartered in Silicon Valley. So, if you're looking for work, this is a great place to come. What's been going on? We are in the middle of an acquisition. We're acquiring another company. There's a lot of change going on. I mean, we're building the digital future. It takes a lot of hard work, sacrifice, intelligence. So it's fun. Prior to this, I was at The Real, which is part of the team that helped it go IPO. Prior to that, I ran my own startup, ended up getting acquired. Been in Silicon Valley quite a few years. I invest occasionally now and then. There's a company that's focused on finding great careers and career leadership for women. I'm an investor in that. There's another, that company is called Alfie, by the way, great company, check it out. There's another company called Alice, which is a a pretty honest, privacy-focused transcription service for journalists. I'm a supporter of that. I mean, there's a few things like that. But yeah, it's been an interesting few years.
This is one of the reasons why I think you resonate with our listeners so much, because it's not like you've just done one thing. You've looked at it through all the angles. You've been acquired, you've acquired, you've invested, you've been invested in. You're looking at changing the game when it comes to buying cars. Like, there's innovation, there's tech. I mean, there's Silicon Valley excitement, right? But I know there's also distributed workforce, lots of unknowns, and lots of opportunity. We can call them problems, but I see them as opportunities to really optimize and create the culture that allows your teams to really do great work and have life outside of work, which I know so many times in startups, you pretty much put your life on hold and that's it, all in at work. So what's some of the thoughts that go into for you when you're thinking about the distributed workforce and really being flexible, in the new world we're in? I believe flexibility is going to be key, because you don't know when the next COVID test comes in and somebody's quarantining and can't make it to a meeting or travel, but you have to plan for it. It's just so unknown. And the fact that you've got a distributed workforce already, I'd love to hear what's your philosophy or thoughts on how you're creating flexibility for your teams and even your customers.
Thanks. Yeah, a great question. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned COVID. Like, it is a very unfortunate reality around us, right? We have to accept it. And I'm usually a very optimistic person, but I guess with age, becoming a little bit realistic. I feel like we should be cautious that we are maybe in between variants, and that might be our situation for the next 2 years or 3 years. We don't know. And so we kind of have to look ahead a little bit. Okay, if you are, now so many companies, they have to become distributed, because a lot of people don't want to come in and commute into work every day. So it's a really good thing, because you get access to a lot of talent that's in different places, and you have to figure out a way to get everybody to work together and adjust to different time zones, adjust to different cultures, even within the US, right? Your energy levels are different, when it's 7 a.m. in California and 10 a.m. in New York, it's different. But if you go even further, right, international, well, it's actually physically different level of energy based on who you're talking to and their time and their when was the last meal that they had compared to your own levels. And now imagine you multiply that with 5 people on a call and everybody's in a different place. So you kind of have to create a culture and an actual tooling maybe, or a safe space to just be comfortable in whatever environment you're in and be accepting of that. Yeah, is that is that resonating?
Absolutely. And what I was going to say is, I remember early on in the pandemic when everyone was like, well, it's a free for all. I'm in my pajamas and eating breakfast, but I'm on Zoom with you. Right. And I think what's happened over time is people like, I have a better backdrop. My lighting's better. I'm trying to, dial up my presence. Yeah. And I think the slippery slope there is just like you're saying, do you make it okay for your team to eat? Is it okay if they go off camera while they're inhaling their lunch? Do you take a minute to check in with your team before you jump straight into business and really presence the fact that there are different time zones and multiple things going on? Yeah. I think you've really hit on something, which is flexibility, right? But I think flexibility comes with slowing down enough to pay attention that not everybody's wired the same way you are or having the same experience you're having. And I think that's what you're highlighting here is, being aware and then creating that. I know creating space sounds very like therapy like, right? But, truly from a culture standpoint, even just your meeting, the way you kick off your meeting sets the tone, right? And if you as a leader go off camera would say, I'm going to eat my lunch, but I'm here, you just make it okay for other people too, Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think there's so many things in this one topic. So we have to be flexible when it comes to the COVID situation in different countries. Right? Some are better than others and some are having a hard time while yours might be okay, right? So you kind of have to watch out for that. And we actually had this situation, I had an engineer I hired in Argentina, and things were relatively okay in California. But in Argentina, things were so hard, he had a curfew that he had to deal with.
Yeah.
And so this person, he's a dad, he had to make sure there was enough food in his house, medicines in his house, because there's going to be a curfew. So I was like, that is a reality that, you know, we as team members, as colleagues, like have to accept, because if that was happening where we live, you know, it would be easier to understand that because everyone's going through it. But now we have to be more flexible and understanding that different people are having different concerns, and you know, you have to make it okay for them to share those concerns and be comfortable.
I really appreciate that. And I love that you have an example to share, right? Because that's real and people can understand that. I actually did I was running an offsite for, I'm under NDA, so I'm trying to manage what I'm about to say. So I'm just going to process real quick. A leadership team at a very high level, let's put it that way, for a tech company that everybody knows. And we did a check-in. I facilitated the check-in. Typically, this is a high executing team. They get straight to work. And I literally said 2 questions. What are you celebrating since the last time we were together? What's something you're proud of? And what's something that you need help with? Like it was something like, I don't know my exact words, something like that. Turns out one of the leaders said, you know, I'm down 3 people and I'm barely hanging on. And, you know, I'm losing my mind. What these are, again, my words. And the entire team went, oh my God, I had no idea. Why don't you tell us? And the person's like, well, you didn't ask and I'm busy working. Right. And so right then and there was that magical moment when we got to step back as a team that I was facilitating and say, all right, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Right. Because everybody around here wanted to be more help to you, but you also need to make it known. And when you're that busy and no one's asking the question and just getting straight to work, that's when the opportunity gets missed.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought this up.
No, I'm with you, you know, on how meetings get started and how they end. I think it's actually important. Like it builds, you know, it builds camaraderie. And that's even harder now. We're not in the same office. We are not, you know, heading out for a coffee run together. So how do you do that? You have to ask a little bit about each other, what's going on, and it's, you know, those first couple of minutes on Zoom when people are trying to join and, you know, there's pings coming. That's perfect. Use that time for some genuine, sincere interest in, you know, the other people who are on the call.
I agree.
And, you know, if you can join a minute early, so you get an extra minute just to chit chat a bit, it helps.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things I know you're passionate about is simplicity, and almost the opposite of making things complicated. How might you make it as simple as possible? And I know that the magic when before the meeting starts, a lot can get done. And it actually is so simple. People miss that all the time because the way they're scheduling things and the way that the organizational culture is around meetings. I'd love to open up a conversation with you about, I guess it's 2 things because I see a segue here. One is evangelizing your work and getting it noticed. I have a thought on this at that beginning of the meeting. And then number 2, thoughts on how we can make it easier for people to have that chit chat time. I think that it's a good place for us to spend a couple of minutes. And I wanted to, and I'm thinking about this from the hybrid work world and getting your work noticed in a distributed fashion. And you don't have the coffee times, you don't have the lunch in the cafeteria or at the restaurant. And I know that so many times for technical experts, it's like my work should speak for itself. I'm just going to get my job done and that's the way it goes. And I'll get rewarded and compensated and life's going to be grand. And then they realize, I didn't get that promotion, or I didn't get that project, or how come I got passed over? And then they start to think, well, I don't want to play politics. I don't want to talk about my work. I don't want to brag. And I'm always talking to our clients about how it's not bragging. It's actually being of service. If you can share like what you're proud of, what you're working on that matters. But I would love to get your thoughts on this because I think it's something that's really important right now when we're looking at how much is going on as far as turnover and what's happening. If you want your engaged workforce, I think we need to help the workforce know how to talk about what they're working on.
Yeah, I'm so with you on that. I'll start off with an example on the evangelizing. Know, I have in my staff right now, I have a very senior technical leader. He's awesome, brilliant manager. And he doesn't communicate much to other stakeholders about what he's doing. Usually because he's humble, he's just hesitant that it'll feel like showing off. And my advice again and again is, you're not showing off, you're informing others what you're doing so that they know what things they can come to you for. Or they know that, okay, this is being handled, I don't need to worry about it. And on the other hand, a little bit of sharing what you're doing is also good to represent your own team. You have a team, they're doing a lot of good work, right? And someone has to talk about what that work is. And so I don't want to overgeneralize, but from what I have seen, a lot of people in technology, they don't talk a lot about their work. Some of them write blogs, which is great, but usually within companies, it's maybe a little bit more hesitant than they should be. They don't need to be. They're doing amazing work. People want to hear about it. People want to understand it. And sometimes it's hard to distill it down into something that's easily digestible. But I think that's important.
Yeah.
Not just for getting a promotion, but just for being recognized and acknowledged that, okay, this is what you're good at. And I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I'm hearing you say, like, you not sharing what you're working on is actually not helping the leadership team show appreciation to you or value what you bring. It's actually, the information itself is useful for a leader to be able to then either highlight that, reinforce it, or even just to get to know you on a deeper level. I think that that's something that, when I think about, because we teach this, it's one of the things we teach, is called the soundbite strategy. And the soundbite strategy is simple 30-second. It's not your elevator pitch. It's literally when someone says, how are you? How's it going? What's new? Most of the time people tend to say good or busy. Right. But I'm like, that's not building relationships and certainly not building awareness. And so when someone says, how are you? How's it going? The opportunity is to say, really busy. We're working on rolling out this tape out. I'm super proud of my team. They're giving it their all. Like, this is the simplest answer, right?
Yeah.
Or, thanks for asking. I'm actually kind of tired because I spent all weekend on this, but we just closed this PO and I'm super proud of our team. Like, there's ways to just do the and you don't even have to make it about yourself, which is really what you're saying too, is just being of service and sharing information actually helps the company run better and helps people know what you're working on and makes it easier for them to connect with you.
Yeah. I mean, if someone is trying to show humility, sure, they can use a choice of words so that it doesn't appear that they're bragging, because that is not what evangelizing your work is about. It's about informing, and just giving sufficient detail for people to understand, okay, this is handled and this is the team, or these are the people that are doing this.
Yep.
And so, we can move on to other things. So I actually give a couple of tactical ideas, and I'm sure a lot of companies do this already, but we have a couple of channels in our Slack. One is a product releases channel, and it's just ongoing because we have ongoing sprints. We push code to production every day. So anytime a feature goes out or we turn a feature live, generally the manager, whether it's an engineering manager or a product manager, they will post with screenshots or a video that, hey, this is what we did. So that's perfect. Within 30 seconds, I can tell what was just launched. And even though it's my team launching it, that little update really helps me because it brings the whole story from the past, a few weeks or a month together into one soundbite. But great, this happened. Now we'll watch it. It registered. We'll remember it.
That's awesome.
And one of the things that culturally, at least here, that we always do is people thank each other. And so that's a very easy way to bring notice to who all worked on this. It could be someone in operations, plus someone in marketing, plus people in engineering, data science. Everybody gets a name. And then one more tactical thing that we do is we have a thank you channel, and people every now and then, when they finish something, they'll go and thank the other person. And again, that's great. You're evangelizing what you guys just did together, and it's a nice thing to do. but it's also useful to the company because now we are all learning, okay, what was done and who did it.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah. I really appreciate this so much because that's everything you just explained. It's not going to take you more than 5 minutes. Yeah. Right. So we're not asking you, we're not suggesting or implying by these 3 tactical things, go spend an hour a day on this. I think it's really about being intentional.
Yeah.
And this is really, it's interesting. My daughter's school, they do this thing called AAA, acknowledgement, appreciation, and apology. It's every Friday.
Oh, that's great.
And I'm like, this is flipping awesome. AAA, acknowledgement, appreciation, or apology, and apology. It's always an and, right? I just think that what you just talked about here translates even there. And the thing that, honestly, when you were talking, I was like, wow, when we facilitate workshops, we always facilitate in a way that appreciation can get presenced. So let's say someone shares an example in a group coaching session. I'll say, hey, why don't we show some appreciation for so-and-so in the chat? What did you learn? What can you appreciate? What inspired you? Like, we actually lead with those things, and then the chat blows up and the person sharing feels like, okay, I didn't waste anybody's time. Because I think so many times people don't share because they feel like it's just a waste of time. And you're inviting them to look at this as being of service and being informational and actually building a culture. So I just love your tactical tip. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's even, thank you. So, but it's even more important because now we are distributed. We are not all in the same office bumping into each other and sharing that information. So we have to do the extra effort of sharing it so that everybody who's not in the same place knows about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, let's talk about meetings for a second, because I know something that you work on constantly is simplifying and making things less complicated. So what are some tactical, practical things that you're doing to build the culture of flexibility and inclusion at Shift that also, to be a best practice others you invite to consider?
Yeah, thanks. This is a hot topic. People usually work with me. They know that I can, talk about meetings and I have my opinions on meetings. First of all, I think we have to recognize that one of the reasons why meetings happen the way they happen across most companies now, especially tech companies, is because of how meetings were designed in software when it was first invented. The default setting for most meetings is 1 hour because that's the default setting in Google or in Outlook. That doesn't mean meetings have to be 1 hour, right? So some of the things that at least I try to push for is, have 15-minute check-ins. You don't always have to have like a 30-minute meeting. I would rather do, a quick 10-minute phone call 3 times a week, depending on the situation, instead of having one 30-minute meeting on a Friday, because who knows, by then a lot of stuff has happened, right?
Yeah.
So
that's more agility.
Yeah, that's usually what I do with my recruiting team. Is instead of checking in like once a week, I'll be in touch very often for a little bit, because that way we can maneuver very quickly without taking up a lot of time, right? You can do it literally while you're out having coffee or something. It's easy. The other thing that I've asked my team to do is pick up the phone. You don't always have to schedule a meeting.
Yep.
You should feel comfortable to either, click the call button on whatever software you're using, Slack or Zoom or something, or pick up the phone, depending on your relationship with the person. And I found it if you think about it, I came from that lifestyle where phone was everything, when we were younger.
Yeah.
Everything was on the phone. Then I switched to now a lot of texting and, chat software on your computer. And now I'm realizing that, a quick call on the phone can actually save a lot of time and give a lot of clarity. So instead of exchanging 10 different emails, well, a 10-minute phone call kind of resolves that. So I guess I don't have one perfect solution, but it's more about using all of the different things available to you instead of the way 1 or 2 things were designed.
I love this so much.
Break out of that status quo.
Yeah. Yep. It goes back again, I think, to intentionality and choose the right channel for the right reasons. It's so interesting. So we use on our team, we have a WhatsApp channel and we have Voxer and we have Slack. So sometimes my phone's like bing, 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 bing. And I'm like, oh, And I realized it's because we work with different vendors. There's a whole bunch of things that go on, right? And I love the phone. And so sometimes if I'll see an email, I'll Voxer someone or WhatsApp, whatever, pick your whatever. And I'll say like, hey, I'm available between this and this and this and this today. I'd love to chat about it. Right. Because they may not even be able to pick up. So even if you can't call them right away, because you don't know if they're doing something, you can still invite a phone call. Yeah. And I think that I agree with you. And so many times that you can save 10 emails with one phone call. And I think it's important to allow that time in your day for you to either be the instigator, the initiator of a phone call, or to be a recipient of one too. And so that's why I love so much of your philosophy on meetings not being 60 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that you have to find, the only way to find the space is to not go with the default setting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so I guess we should give some context to the listeners. Email is awesome. I love it. But the thing to remember is, there's another option as well, right? So it could be a phone call. Another option is, and I've been using this more often, which is the audio message on your phone.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
So instead of texting and typing a lot, I'll just use that. So it conveys the emotion in my voice. And it's, it was much easier for me to just say it instead of typing and all that. So I think we are lucky now that we have so many different options to communicate with each other. We just have to get better at picking the right one instead of just the default ones, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. And I think too, when you're thinking about the hybrid workplace and all of the complexity that's going on right now, that's a great conversation for a team meeting to just agree, revisit norms and have a conversation about what works. One of the things I learned about myself is that I am much better with a voicemail or voice message than typing. And that I'm so busy sometimes I'll put off typing because it feels like it'll take too long. And so we have an agreement on our team that it's okay for me to leave a voice memo, and that if they need more, they'll follow up. But that's why sometimes Voxer is what we use, because you can it transcribes your voice memos, where like on iPhone, if you don't have the right setting, you can lose it after you listen to it. Right. So we had to really have conversations about what is our standard operating procedure and where is there flexibility in how we communicate. World of difference. Even on LinkedIn in the messaging component, I do voice messages on LinkedIn rather than type.
Oh, that's great.
And everyone's like, you can do that? I'm like, yes, you can do that. It's amazing, right? Because to your point, which I want to make sure we say is, how many emails have you misunderstood or misread or inferred something because you couldn't hear the person's tone of voice or their energy? Yeah. I need to talk to you versus I need to talk to you. Like there's like a whole different range of that. So when you can hear the voice, it matters. So I really appreciate that we're just bringing that forward so that people can think about and even just pause for a minute. Like, is my communication as effective as it could be? And how might I have more human connection in the process because of the fact that we can't just walk next door and talk to each other anymore?
Yeah. I want to add a little bit to that. I think, so by the way, this is something my team has done. I actually wrote a little handbook for our team.
Yeah.
And there is a section on meetings and meeting culture. And the whole point is so that all of us are on the same page about what we expect, right? Mm-hmm. So from my point of view, the best meetings are the ones where, yes, you get the outcome you want because everyone understood what was the agenda of this meeting. So every meeting has to have an agenda. It could be one line, it could be 5 bullets, right? You got the outcome and you ended the meeting early. That is the best meeting. Right?
That is the best meeting. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other one is don't have a lot of recurring meetings. And this is one I struggle with myself too, right? Sometimes I'll experiment that, okay, let's not have recurring one-on-ones. Let's just make them ad hoc. So we are more casual, just call me when you're free, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Or you want to talk, ping me. We'll find time within 2 hours, to talk. Still on the fence, trying to figure out the best way to make that one work. Again, because of time zones and everything. Right?
Yep.
But I've seen that my team has gotten pretty comfortable just pinging me or texting me. And it's just made us more informal with each other, which is good. I mean, we're all colleagues in this, kind of fellow adventurers on a mission together. So,
oh my God, say that again. Fellow adventurers on a mission together.
Yeah.
Like I'd want to be on that team. That's awesome.
On that team. Yeah. It's fun, right?
Right.
All of us have a different role to play. And that's it.
Yeah. And I think the pull through here for me, when I'm thinking about all the different teams and all the different leadership styles, the pull through here is the humanity. It's the connection. It's like you said, it's more relaxed. That there are ways to foster culture just in how you run your meetings, the cadence, the content, and then also the communication pre and post. I think it's so worth a revisit right now, because making assumptions and doing it the way it's been done isn't going to get you through where we're going. It's
Agreed.
not. Yeah.
What got you here won't get you there, right?
Yeah. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but I think it's really important, I think, to present this concept of contagiousness, right? I mean, you've probably noticed this, like when turnover starts happening, it's like one or two, and then it's a flood. When people start to have issues, it might be one person or two, but then they talk and then it gets raised. So energy is contagious. And I think what you're advocating for in the examples you're giving is, positive energy, and energy that's actually productive and connection, versus negative energy, or what some might call toxic, because you're basically saying, let's meet everybody where they are and agree together. And I can't I can't emphasize this point enough when we think about the world that we're in now as leaders, because we are reading social cues and we are looking at other people's opinions and messaging. And then there's so much coming at us at once that it's really easy to just go into that, I'll call lower vibe. Right.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about here is how might you make a culture of contagiousness that's, productive and engaging.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you on that. Like I love how you described it, which is, positive energy. Absolutely. I think we have to see that, okay, we aren't all sitting in an office together. So how do you still convey that you still like and admire the other person, for what they are, for what they bring to the table? There's just no choice. You have to do the extra effort now, because you're not sitting with them. You can't just buy them a cup of coffee or go for drinks, right? Or you can't just, pat them on the back as you're walking by, like whatever people do.
Yep. Whatever it is.
You can't do that anymore, right? So you have to find other ways, which is whether it's an acknowledgement on a group chat or something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I'm trying to get to is the thing with a lot of workplace meetings is that, okay, they're useful, you want people to connect and communicate. So the reason to have maybe fewer meetings or better meetings is so that you have more time left, one, to be thoughtful and actually do some thoughtful work, but two, also to have time on your calendar to be social.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have time on your calendar for happy hour with your team, because you need that now. You're not getting that in this environment anymore. You need to create time for that. And because people are going to be in different places, you can't always have it at 6 p.m. It might be 11 p.m. for someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting towards, is that all meetings are not bad. It's about how do we find more time in our day to do other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to call you like the time bender, because the invitation I'm hearing you say to anyone listening, at whatever level of leadership, by the way, I don't care, board member, VC, frontline manager, how can you be more intentional with your time? What might you gain by actually pulling back in one area, or what might you improve by questioning and challenging your norms now, because they're not going to be norms anymore. We're going to have to flex. Yeah, I really, this is so good. So let's talk about retention and turnover and, grass is greener and all the fun stuff that, people are calling the great resignation. Some people are calling it the great reassessment, right? But the reality is it's a great something, and it's really the lens you're putting on it, right? And I know I just pulled the data before our meeting because I wanted to have accurate data right now, but currently the amount of cost. So if you're taking a technical leader and replacing them right now, the cost is 213% of the annual salary. So that's like no joke when it comes to just the bottom line business. And that has to do with the recruiting fees and training them, getting them up to speed. And when I think about that, it's not lost on me that there's also a cost to the individual. There's a cost to the team, right? All of the change that goes on. And I think right now people are really at a tipping point with this contagiousness, right? Of outlook. Should I stay or should I go? And there's a lot in the news lately about, people just like, well, the pandemic made me want to build a startup or do my own thing or, form my own whatever, build my own widget. And I think because you've been in both places, acquired or acquiring, investing or being invested in, I think your perspective here could be really useful for people as they're really almost like at the soul level, wondering, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Is this really right for me? Because there's all this sparkly, shiny stuff with all the news articles about what's possible or what could be. And I think it's like we have a moral obligation to have this conversation. I think your perspective could really lend itself well for people who are deciding and also for leaders who are trying to re-recruit, engage who they have, and also for themselves, because the burnout rates in tech are off the charts. And when you get to that point, you feel like quitting and just trying something new. And I don't know that that's always the best choice.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's true, people are jumping ship, at least statistically. That is happening quite a bit, whether they're going for another job or starting their own business. And some people are just quitting to take time off because literally they're burnt out, right? And it does bother me a lot when that happens. Like, especially this scenario where someone is leaving because they're burnt out. That makes me feel really bad because I feel like, oh no, like, why are you quitting? You could have just taken a month off. We would have supported that. You don't have to leave. But by then, it's too late because they've made up their mind and it's not an option. So I would encourage anybody who's feeling that to just have the honest conversation with your manager. And I hope you have a manager that you can trust, opening up to. Because I would always, try to do that for at least, for people that I work with, is recognize that if someone's going through something and just give them some time and it's fine. It's better than finding someone else to come in with and train
it's
them.
Better
like
than 213%. Yeah,
it's too expensive, right?
Yeah,
and it's also morally, like, it's expensive for the team just in terms of morale, and it's expensive just mentally taxing, right? So we can avoid that and do good for both parties. The other thing is, when it comes to startups, I mean, of course, startups are great. I'm an entrepreneur. I would support any entrepreneur who's trying to do that. I don't think it's easy. At the same time, I think people might make it harder than it needs to be sometimes. And I think that can affect you. Like, if say you're working at a tech company, you're making a bunch of money, because that's what tech companies are doing now, is they're giving people a lot of money. One, you're going to leave all that to go become an entrepreneur. That is a big change in your lifestyle. And so I think people should really think hard instead of getting caught up in the moment. And I don't blame people. Like, I myself have been there. You can get just caught up in the excitement of an idea and then just fall in love with it. Then nothing else makes sense. And, I would just encourage that, start recognizing that tendency, not just for the startup idea, but for many things in your life, especially any big thing, especially. And try to also say, okay, I'll put emotions aside for 1 hour and I will try to create a 2x2 table of pros and cons. So you can somehow balance the rational idea against the emotional desire that you have, right? That has definitely helped me. I've tried that, and it's helped. The other thing is, so let's come back to finances. Like, it's a big financial change in your life. So you have to decide why you're doing that, right? Are you doing it because you want more time on your hands? Are you doing it because you want to be, the leader of your own life, sort of, your own boss? And we can get into those topics because all of those things have pros and cons, and you have to consider whether you're actually going to get what you want based on this action you're taking, right?
You know, it's interesting when I'm hearing you talk. I saw I saw the grid. So I did form my own consulting firm. So in many eyes, I'm an entrepreneur now, right? I run my own business. Man, I remember about 4 months in, and I'm not a tech startup, do you know? But I remember about 4 months in looking to my husband and going, you know, I burnt out before. And I felt like I had given everything I had to give back then, but it's so different when it's yours and you're responsible for others and the pay isn't guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like it's, you know, this concept of hustle, I'm not a fan of, but I don't have a better word to describe the immense pressure, right? And I have raised funds for our business and I know what it's like to look at that investor and realize you owe them now and they are your boss now. And so I raised the funds and then I gave them back because I was like, that's not going to work for me if what I'm trying to do. And I also know other people that have left and thought it's going to be awesome. And then it's like this awareness of holy crap, I didn't see it all. So what you just gave, this example of, you know, write down the pros and cons and take a minute. It's actually a huge gift to anyone who's considering. And I think that this applies whether you want to go build your own business or even look for a new job. I mean, heck, even if you want to go get a different house or move to a different city, this is relevant. And, you know, one thing I learned we have a somatic coach that we work with, which is like noticing what's in your body and body alignment. And she taught me something I didn't even have a clue about. And this is so fascinating. I want to share it, that any feeling you have, it peaks in 20 minutes. So profound grief, you're going to feel depth of despair for 20 minutes. And it's going to lessen and change and shift. You might go back, but that's the peak. And then there's a break, whether it's a minute, a day, it doesn't matter. Like, so you can count on, which has been so liberating to me. Anytime I feel anxious or worried, I'm like, oh, 20 minutes of anxiety, that's not going to kill me. Right. It's not weeks and days and months. So I think, when you're sharing this and you're looking at it through the lens of people trying to decide, should I stay or go? Should I build my own business or should I do what I can here? I think many times it's the relationship with the manager that gets in the way and they just feel like it's easier to quit than say, I need a burnout leave, or easier to start an own business and be scared to death and be like, hey, you passed me over for this. Can I have that one? So I don't know, in your own lived experience, what would be something you might tell your younger self? Like, what's a myth you believe to be true when it came to what's possible in your environment or your situation at the time?
I'm so glad for this question. So something definitely comes to mind, and you know, when I learned it, it really impacted me. So I guess I want to tell people that let's let the ambulance pass first.
At the ambulance. Here's the wake up call. The ambulance is getting our attention. Yep.
So things are not as big, as personal, or as permanent as you think.
Say it again. Can you say that again?
Things are not as big, as personal, or as permanent as you think.
Did you make that up?
You know, I didn't. I cannot take credit for making it. But people.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we need to remember that.
Yeah, that's a writer downer.
A situation you're having maybe at your workplace, maybe in your personal life, it will pass. It sounds cliched, but it's maybe not targeted to you. Maybe you just need to step away from it. And at the end of the day, you have to remember that we are in charge of our own emotions, right? And so don't give the power to someone else. Right? Just kind of manage it. It's easier said than done, but
yeah, it's a lifetime. That's why I have a somatic coach, right? Because I'm like, the thing that really kind of unearthed for me was when I became a parent and I started getting triggered by things. And I was like, where is this coming from? Like that when I was 4, I felt this way. Yeah, remembering stuff, right? Like, but I'm like, oh yeah, parenting and children actually reopen stuff that's not processed yet. And you can feel right back there. And boy, I didn't want to show up that way. So I had to really start working on myself with some things. And I started realizing they aren't as big or as personal or as permanent. And I wish I had that phrase. I'm really, really glad that you presence that right now, because the world feels really big and really personal and really permanent.
Yeah.
Right. And it's
but
not.
it's not, right? Things keep changing
Mhm.
all the time. I want to go back to what you were talking about businesses and startups and people wanting to like start their own thing. I think one of the things to remember is going and raising money from VCs is not the only way, right? And I think people have to realize that like, we have been starting businesses and succeeding and failing and starting again, like for generations. This is not a new phenomenon that just started like 30 years ago or 40 years ago. It's not. So there's nothing wrong with raising money. I'm just saying that you have to decide what kind of life you want. If you want to build $1 billion business, it's been done, a multi-billion dollar business now. $1 billion business is small. You have to look at what your trajectory is going to be, like financial trajectory, building that company, and what your life is going to be, whether it's over the next 1 year, or which is some businesses are becoming $1 billion companies within a year. So let's acknowledge that. But more likely, it's going to take a few years. And you're going to raise multiple rounds. You're going to take some money off at each round, and that's how you're going to build your wealth. And eventually, you're going to get very big and very successful, and everybody will know who you are. But it's going to take a significant chunk of your life. And do not discount luck. People who say that luck had nothing to do with it, no, sorry, you're being blind. Luck and good timing plays an important part in things working out, right? Or and not working out. So recognize that trajectory and learn about it if you don't know. I mean, you can reach out to multiple people and talk about it. The other angle is if you just want to make enough money to be comfortable, you don't need to go and build a multi-billion dollar company to do that. I mean, I'm sure most people will be happy with a few million and have a very comfortable life, right? And their future generations will have a very comfortable life, depending on how you do it. So look into that, like depending on what you desire, right? You might have a chance of being your own boss genuinely in that path, versus raising a bunch of money from many different investors who have their own opinions and ideas. And a lot of investors are very good partners, but some aren't. And you should be choosy who you work with. The third thing is, if you're not doing it for money, you're just doing it because maybe you want more time, maybe you just want to feel a sense of ownership of something, well, then that's a very different path. That's what the majority of the world does when they start their own businesses. So I think people should study these different styles and different techniques and, choose the one that they really want versus, I guess, chasing what's fashionable.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. 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 One of the things that I ask every client, I asked you before we started, how do you want to feel when we're done? And I think that that's a great question to ask for each model you're looking at or each decision you're making. It's really, what feeling are you chasing? Because many times people go for what they think they want, then they get there and they're not happy. And then they're just like, why did I give up XYZ or this many years or this comfort? Because I think a lot of times if you're chasing financial freedom, you might take a different path and going and getting a bunch of funding, right? That's not financial freedom, right? If you're changing time freedom, you want to just be able to golf when you want or sleep in or take a vacation. That's usually not entrepreneurship at least for my first 5 years. Right. I can just speak from my own world. So I think really getting clear on the feeling you're chasing and how do you want to feel would really help inform the grid with the pros and cons.
Yeah.
Because that's a good balance.
I'll actually give a couple of quick examples. There's a guy I know. He's an engineer, roughly 45-ish, family and everything. And he became a consultant a few years ago. And he codes. He loves what he does. Whenever he feels like he'll take a few months off. He loves to golf. So that is what he does. He's not interested in making millions of dollars. He lives in a place where it's not very expensive to live and raise a family. And he's always happy because he's doing just what he wants to do. He's not chasing millions and millions of dollars or trying to become, uber successful in the eyes of other people, right?
Yep.
He's channeling his own inner authority to be successful at what, he thinks is success. And then there's another person I know who travels a lot with his family. No interest in equity, no interest in building the next mind-blowing startup. Brilliant engineer, and he's a true digital nomad. He'll go from country to country, live wherever they want to live. He doesn't spend time thinking about how am I going to get my kid into Stanford or Berkeley. I have to send them to the best private school, and so I have to live in San Jose or something. Does not cross his mind. He's like, I'm giving my kid a good education by traveling and by exposing him to a lot of different cultures. And I'm like, and they're perfectly happy.
Yeah.
Not interested in a career ladder, not interested in something else. So there are many, I guess, like truly different ways of tackling that, the thing that you truly want. Another one just came to mind. Sorry.
Yeah.
This is a guy I know. He buys old computers here in the US and sends them to third world countries. He ships them to third world countries. So he buys them here and he sells them there. That's his own little indie business, and he's perfectly happy doing that. So that's fantastic. So there's a lot of different ways.
This is, this is why I love talking to you. So you're talking about values and you said your own inner authority. And I really want to land on that for a second, because how that should be the authority, right? Your inner authority, your soul, your heart, your mind, your spirit, all that's aligned on really what feelings you're chasing and what you want to do. And when I think about the dissatisfaction that people experience at work, I think it's the disconnect from their inner authority and like the societal, like you said, I want to make sure my kid gets into Stanford. So I'm going to sit still and pay these prices and sit in this commute and like sacrifice everything. Where your other example is like, they're getting a life education and they're going to be just fine. Right. It's just really about what matters. What is your value system? What is your inner authority? And then also being financially smart and responsible for whatever choices you're making. I think that that's very important to talk about, because that's real. Like, it's all great to have an inner authority, but you don't have money in the bank. Then you got to go figure it out. So,
but isn't that the thing? Like, Lisa, a lot of people now, a lot of people will be comfortable. Like the people who are listening to this podcast, I mean, trust yourself, guys. You'll be fine. You will make the money you need to make to be comfortable. You will be okay, right? And so I think you're right. Like chasing money, I don't think that works out that often, But chasing other things, such as impact or the thing that you love, really going down that path, that will most likely lead to a way of, making you financially very comfortable. So,
it's so interesting where our conversations go, because I know that we started off talking about the hybrid work world and being flexible and the world that we're in. And we looked at meetings and managing time and being creative. And then we're ending, we're finishing here on, we're really talking about like your soul's agenda on planet Earth, and how you might create a life that you love, doing work that you love, and being compensated in a way to where you're comfortable, right? And making an impact. And I think that really is at the heart of Silicon Valley. It is at the heart of tech. I mean, that's how these companies were born in the first place. So we're not saying, hey, if you have this great idea and it's going to make the world a better place, don't go do it. What we are saying is make sure you're really clear on the dream you're chasing and the feelings that you want, so that it's aligned with your inner authority. And I'm really grateful for our conversation today, Karan.
Yeah, thanks. I love your question, which is, what do you want to feel at the end of this thing? Or what do you want to feel when you're done? I think that's a great question. Yeah.
Thank you. I learned that from Danielle Laporte. I cannot take credit, but I use it all the time. And, one thing I know for sure is a song, a music, a moment, it can bring a memory. It can pump you up if you got to go make that call. It can help you feel connected to a time in your past where there was a good feeling. And I'd love to add your song to our playlist. Is there a song that comes to mind that you think would be great? Thinking of everything we've just discussed, is there a song that comes to mind that we can share?
It does. So first of all, I'll say I really like peppy songs. I mean, I like dance numbers. I listen to those a lot. I think "Hello" by Martin Solveig. It's pretty cool.
How's it go?
Heard that? I don't remember.
Do I know "Hello" by Martin Solveig?
Martin Solveig. He's a DJ.
Oh, if he's a DJ, I'm in.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. You got me. Okay, I'm in. Look, I'm already doing the head. Yeah. Night at the Roxbury head shake. Okay. We're going to add it. And here's what I'm going to say. I can't wait to listen to it because I'm going to go pick up my daughter when we're done and I'm going to listen to it on the way.
All right.
Here's what I know. I'm deeply grateful for our time. I'm so glad our paths crossed when they did so that we can bring this perspective in here to this platform for our listeners. Because, while I work in tech and I live in this land, I've done it my entire career. The experience you have is not mine. And so we're stronger together. And I think you've just inspired whoever's listening today to pause, to think about their meeting structure, think about their own internal authority, figure out how they might make it more human for their distributed workforce, how you might re-recruit your own teams. And if you're thinking of leaving, what to think about before you just jump and then maybe have regret, but to really be intentional. So thanks for showing up this way and for sharing your thoughts. I'm always inspired. Sounds like I am inspired, but like I just have a deep gratitude for how you show up as a leader and what you bring to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I mean, I love chatting like this. I think this conversation helps me think about things differently. So it's really helpful for me as well to be here. I love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, you're welcome. Well, let's tell people how to find you. So if there's open recs, are they going to your website? If they want to talk to you, have you on a podcast or come speak, are they going to LinkedIn? Where should they find you?
People can, if you're looking for a job, nice place to work, go to shift.com/careers. You'll find some options there. If you just want to get in touch with me, I am on LinkedIn. The handle is Karan MG, and you'll be able to find it. Otherwise, you can email me, karan@shift.com.
That's awesome. We'll put in the show notes too, so everyone can have it. Here's the double dog dare, everybody. Go look at your calendar and go figure out how to bend time and find at least 10 minutes a day where you are not in meetings so that you can be present in a space of gratitude or perhaps connect with one of your teammates. That's your dare. Awesome. Here's what I'm going to say. I want to have you back. I don't think we're done. I think that we need to keep the conversation going. So if you're up for it, Karan, we'll do this again. Thank you for your time. I know you're very busy. You're doing amazing things over there. And it's not lost on me how much you've poured into our audience. And I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I feel the same way. I feel like we left some things unfinished. Like this topic, we could spend a lot of time on it.
I think there's more. I'm not sure what it is yet, but maybe that we'll ask our listeners. What do you want us to hear? What do you want to hear from the Lisa and Karan show next? Right? That's awesome. All right, everybody, make it a great day. Take good care of yourself and follow your inner authority. Till next time on Ctrl Alt Delete, we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. Head on over to wherever you find your other favorite podcasts and subscribe to Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. Leave a review with some of that 5-star love. And let's keep it real. There's a reason why you're listening to this. If you don't get the support you need and start making changes in your life and work as a leader in tech, you can expect regret and burnout in the near future. Lisa and the team at RLD Group have been in your shoes, sat in those meetings, and experienced everything you can imagine as a leader in tech. They can help you get kick-ass results at work without burning out, so you can be present for the moments that matter to you and your loved ones. Take your first step by visiting rldgroupllc.com. RLD Group helps develop technical experts lacking people leadership skills from being a company's biggest liability into their greatest asset. Find out more at rldgroupllc.com. Thanks again for listening. Catch you next time on Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre, powered by RLD Group, as we help you reboot your leadership drive.